Hello. Thanks for clicking on that link. This is Gmash Speaks. Thank you for joining me on this podcast. We are looking at the eighth pill, the education and the empowerment pill, otherwise called educate and empower. Right. This is going to be an interesting one. So this is the concluding part of the educate and empower pill. And what I have decided to do in order to bring this pill to a close is to introduce a few new thought constructs. However, I will also recap on a number of key nuggets that I will have touched on in one of the previous three podcasts on this particular pill. That's the Education and Empowerment Pill series. And I'm doing this for the reason of actually practicing what I'm sharing. What I'm putting across to us as an option for optimal health and wealth. And what I'm sharing is a way of relearning, which is by repetition and practice. There are two of them. And then the other learning being by consciously staying in a theta state where suggestions are put through in the form of either meditation or through self-hypnosis. They both mean the same, basically. Okay, so please hang in with me. We're looking at the Empower Pill. This should hopefully conclude on this series. I say that I'm empowered, you are empowered, and we are empowered to live. You can please refer to my podcast, okay, 008B1, which was the Empower to Change Our Subconsciousness, to get a better view on how to reprogram our minds for optimal health and wealth. Okay, now this podcast is this particular one I'm doing today is more of a recap and also on me closing on how to educate and empower ourselves. In this podcast, part of what we'll be looking at is how we can improve on our consciousness through the power of empowerment, no matter the situation or how or where we find ourselves. Okay, it is purely a matter of getting our minds to be tuned in and having that required presence of mind. These are the things that we require in order to improve on our consciousness, basically. So as we delve into this particular discourse today, I just want to recap on the 9 pills. So we've gone through we've gone through 7 pills. This is the 8th pill in this series, okay? And it's a 9 toolbox kit. So the 9 pills in this toolbox kit. And essentially, the whole essence of this program is to create new discussions, new awareness, new conversations. And basically, we are building a tribe that has as its foundation the basics of creating a new lifestyle or adopting lifestyle changes. Now we're looking at the Education and Empower series or pill in this toolbox kit, being the 8th. And the idea is, or the objective is, once we go through this foundation series, once we've gone through the 9 pills, ultimately the goal is to achieve success. Okay, and achieving success is a means of creating optimal 5-star health and wealth in basically every area of our living and of our lives. So I've put together this to give us a backdrop, to give us something to relate to, in which we're going to use to socialize our minds. Today is quite a very, very touchy day in history. Boris Johnson, as at around this time last year, 2019, was abdominally obese. And this before he went in as a potential British Prime Minister. Now, why am I saying this? There's a relevance to this particular podcast and the whole series. Now, that extra weight that he had around his trunk, his belly section, led Boris Johnson to attend a health screening with a French doctor. This was last year. So here was a man who was representing the political class of what is now the fattest nation in Europe. I'm referring to Britain now. And he is and he was a living embodiment of a general global state of moral acrasia. I mean, that is being a state of being when you lack control or when you lack command over yourself. So here's the thing, and I took out time to say a lot on the subject of abdominal obesity. On my podcast is the podcast that is titled 007C and Sex WHO Took My Erections. They're referring to World Health Organization and how being abdominally obese can lead to a whole myriad of chronic illnesses, including but not limited to our risk for a first heart attack or stroke, for high blood pressure or hypertension, or leading to risk of coronary heart disease or type 2 diabetes, or even kidney disorders, and of course, sexual dysfunction. I did mention this when I mentioned this that when you get rid of that obesity, you will be on the path to restoring your quality and optimal health. What is the relevance of this preamble? Boris Johnson must have been warned of this, okay? Because I say that because he compared Brexit to his own health, and he said this, and I want to quote directly what he said, okay? He says, it's on record to have said, this was last year, we know that we have to make certain changes if we are to leave the EU. We know that we have to get ready to be lighter on our feet and more agile. That is, if we are to take advantage of all the freedoms we will gain. The freedom to innovate, the freedom to regulate in the interest of UK firms, the freedom to open up new markets around the world to British goods and services. And what have we done? Nothing. He goes on, he ends by saying he still has a bit more to say. But before I do that, I just want to make a mention that at this point in time of history, Boris is going through a very critical period. And my request is that we should please pray for him. Okay? And it's a very delicate period. Today being the 7th of April 2020. We as a unit, we as an entity, and that I refer to GMASH Speaks, we are requesting for our prayers. Okay, so going back to what he says, or he said sometime last year, he says, we have been unable to kick our habits. We have been too paralyzed, we've been slothful and feeble to leave the costumes, union and single market. That causes his statement. Now, after 2 weeks of eating healthy, Boris Johnson described how his sight had improved, his interest peaked, and had lost a total of 12 pounds. And he goes on to say, if I can do it, so can we all. The relevance to saying that, or to making mention of Boris Johnson, is to mention that our health is quite critical in achieving optimal living or obtaining optimal living. Now, belly fat is dangerous because it's got a lot of associations with conditions that accelerate the clogging of arteries. And these include, but not restricted to, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and diabetes, as well as what the big pharma regard as raised levels of cholesterol. Now, we in this group, we in GMASH Speaks, we say there is no such thing as high cholesterol. What we have is a level of high inflammation. Now, I will encourage us to listen to my podcast titled Get Sunlight, the Natural Way to Optimal Health. In that particular podcast, I have touched on how we have been socialized to see cholesterol as the demon, okay, as the bad hormone, whereas there is no such thing as too high cholesterol. There is no such thing. Here is our position in GMASH Speaks on whether or not a positively affected COVID-19 patient survives the pandemic. We have a position on that. And one large factor as to whether or not COVID-19 is survived depends largely on the health of your immune system. Now, if both your innate and adaptive immune systems are not robust, or if there is deficiency, or they are deficient, then external and internal invaders such as viruses, germs, bacteria, free radicals, and a host of others could very well overwhelm our bodies. They could incapacitate us or even lead to death or a vegetable state, no matter the sort of medical intervention and support that we get. We need to avoid this state of a low degenerative health, which we find ourselves in. And this is a state created through the monopoly of the Big Four. I mentioned the Big Four before. The Big Four, who have only their shareholders' interest at heart and not our personal health interests. Now, we in GMASH Speaks, as the rest of those concerned, okay, in this particular time that we are facing, being the 7th of April 2020, we are concerned and we are praying for the recovery of British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and hope that his immune system and the medical interventions that are being put in place can and will pull him through this very difficult period he and the globe are going through. This is not something that he is experiencing on his own. It's been experienced by the whole of the globe. Essentially, we have our prayers, we have our minds, we have our focus, and we are standing in agreement that he will pull through this one. So getting straight back into this particular series, I just had to use it as a preamble because it's the talk of the day, talk of the moment. But getting straight back into the podcast, I would like to state that there are 5 big players who are going to play dominant roles as we stay out in life to achieve our goals and purposes, both in the area of optimal health and wealth. Now, these big 5 players are already positioned to be the biggest players after the biggest publicly broadcasted pandemic of our time. Okay, these big 5 are well positioned. Today being the 7th of April 2020, we are living through the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, and like I've mentioned previously, the highlight for today is the news that today Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson has now been moved into ICU and might soon be put on a ventilator. These are indeed trying times. Now, when you get put on a ventilator, when you have especially when you have the best medical interventions that money can buy, and failing the interventions that money can buy, and you get put on a ventilator, it is a huge concern. okay, for anyone. It's a huge concern that we are set up to address. And I want to pack on this subject a bit and just look at what's actually going on and the ramifications. I've mentioned the big five. Okay, now the big five players that we're referring to here. Okay, I'm not referring to the elephant, the rhino, the lion, or the hippo, or the leopard. I'm referring to big foodie. Okay, I'm referring to big pharma. I'm referring to big telco. I'm referring to big cosmeceuticals. I'm referring to us as the big consumers. We are the fifth big players in that big five picture. Okay, and I mentioned the cosmeceuticals. We cannot forget that industry. It's a fast growing industry, and I don't want to assume that we understand what that industry is. So I'm going to describe what it is. Okay, it's an industry that describes products that are a cross between a cosmetic and a pharmaceutical product. And cosmeceuticals are in high demand due to a shift from synthetic personal care products to organic products. It's a huge blossoming industry. The global market for this is actually on the rise. Now, big pharma and big foodie are also about to play more prominent roles in the big industry called the cosmeceutical industry, or that space. And they're going to play big roles as aftermath of COVID-19. Watch out, guys. So a product that is a cosmeceutical product is essentially a skincare product that contains biologically active compounds that are thought to have effects that are pharmaceutical on the skin. Okay, this market is a huge market and offers a wide range of products and also services, broadly speaking. For example, products and services to help retain youthful appearances, and also products and services which help in anti-aging. So this is a big player. And like I mentioned, they're going to play yet more prominent roles in our health and wealth post-COVID-19. A big role beyond what we are currently being made to realize and what we actually do know. So like I mentioned, watch the space, watch out for products on how this big industry can in actual fact and in truth give us optimal health or contribute towards optimal health. It is coming. It's in the post. It's almost here. They are playing big in this in the space now, but they're going to play much bigger post COVID-19. So now the keepers of the castle, okay, the ones meant to keep and protect us, in our opinion, have been severely compromised. And this is something that's happened decades ago. And that is not just about to change. The WHO, the likes of the WHO, the AHA being the American Heart Association, the Cancer Association, the Food and Drug Administration, the International Telecommunications Union, otherwise called the ITU. These are the keepers of the castle being our lives. Now, all this supposed to be autonomous and independent organizations, in our opinion, and there is fact to prove, have been severely compromised by the top 1 percentile owners. Okay, these are people who own these industries. This is where the 1% of the wealthiest of the world's population owns more than half of the world's wealth, according to a new report. Now, this top four industries rule governments. They own the media. They are the same ones that run, rule, and own these supposed to be independent gatekeepers of the castle that is the world. Now, they are, in our opinion, they are meant to be the highest on the FBI most wanted list. They are meant to be, okay? And these four industries are owned and run by the 25 richest people on the earth, okay? And these are people who, as of 2018, had the same net worth as the poorest half of the world's population. That is some 3.8 billion people. So 25 people, 25 richest people in the world as at 2018, which I will still say is the same as at 2020, have a net worth, a total net worth that compares to half of the globe. Then we all know that the richest man, Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon, has a fortune that is roughly around 112 billion as of today. It's reported that just 1% of his fortune is equivalent to the whole health budget. Now listen to this carefully. The whole health budget for Ethiopia. And that's a country of 105 million people. Just 1% of his fortune is equivalent to the whole health budget of Ethiopia. I'd like us to listen. I'm not going to delve on that too long. I'd like us to listen out from my next podcast, which is going to be the last pill in the 9-pill series, the success pill. I will share some startling data on published data with regards to what the Big Four do not want us to see or to know. Okay, so it is alleged that that the Rothschild, the Rockefeller, Mars, Koch, and the Walton families are so rich, and we have unsubstantiated claims that they have a net worth of over $50 trillion. Now, these are unconfirmed reports, and some unconfirmed reports actually say they have well over $100 trillion, and that they own between 30 to 60% of the world's wealth. This is not confirmed. However, their global reach and influence is seen in all the 5 big industries, and those industries include us as the consumers. The 25 richest families in the world today are reportedly worth over $200 trillion, unconfirmed. Now, I don't want us to get carried away with these figures. They are really immaterial in the bigger scope of things. There is a much more relevant essence to me mentioning this. And that essence, the reason of me bringing this up with respect to richest families in the world, is to mention this. These families own the big industries. They own all of them. Now, I'll let that sink in for a moment. These families own all 5 industries, including yourself and myself, okay, either directly or indirectly. The big 4 industry owners are immensely powerful. They stand aside for nobody. They have tens of trillions of dollars. They can buy anyone. They can buy anybody. They designed the schooling and education systems. They own and designed the medical curriculum that our doctors wear and are trained in. They sponsor scholarships for scientists and medical professors. They can put up any information they want to socialize the globe with because they own the media. They can buy scientific results that they want, and this will pass as accepted information, period. That's how powerful they are. They own the media, they own the four industries. So here's the thing. Owning the media, okay, is a big challenge. But that is not where the problem stops. It is a struggle for some of them who are in monopoly of these big or these four big systems or these four big industries. It's a struggle because they've been putting in so much money, and because it's a struggle, they're putting in yet more money into these four industries. And they do so with the help of big media. And the idea is to socialize us in every area of our lives through the print media, through the social media, through the screen media. I mean, when I say screen media, I mean the TV, the phones, the laptops, computers, and the small screens accessed on smartphones and other handheld devices. Remember that we've established the fact that the media is owned by these four big industries. Okay, your big pharma, big telco, big cosmeceuticals, and what's the fourth one? Big foodie. So the current system that we have right now has dismally failed us. We are operating in a collapsed system. Post COVID-19 is going to provide great impetus to stimulate yet more growth and further dominate an already dominated big consumer. We are the big consumers. And they're going to do that with more products and more services, which will be direct and indirect consequences of COVID-19. Keeping up these big industries, these big shareholders, these big owners, for them to have kept up before COVID-19 was becoming a bit of a huge struggle for so many industries. However, the reality was for them to just come out clean, but no one wanted to be the fall guy. No one wanted to take the flak. So we have remained stuck as part of that same system that has failed us up till now. And I want to repeat that there is a new wave coming at us post COVID-19, and it will take only those of us who have been adequately equipped, educated, and empowered to survive the next 2 to 10 years of the new aggressive wave that is going to hit the globe. So with platforms such as ours, with tools such as the census pills, the 9 pills, the public will get to become more aware of the fact that we are part of a failed healthcare system. And then only can it become a revolution. We cannot change what we're going through today through the front door. It's got to be done through a different system, through the grassroots. Okay. However, the revolution and changes are not just going to happen in a usual group setting. It is going to start with you, just one person believing in another system, a system that is personalized for them, that works for them, that looks after them, a system that looks to improve the quality of your health life, and as such, creating true wealth, one that you will enjoy with your family and loved ones. Now, that is an extremely likely possibility. It is not the intention of GMAS Speaks to be a platform to create debate or create arguments between which is more important, wealth and health. However, it is our intention to have a platform to have both health and wealth. That's our intention. That's part of our goals. Okay. And in doing that, we want to take a pot shot at distinguishing between both. And in trying to get a distinction or to explain it in the way in which we understand it, we have come up with this total summation, and that is that we believe that health is more important than wealth. We believe that health is the necessary condition, while health is the sufficient condition. We need both of them. We definitely need both of them in order to live happily. However, the necessary condition is always more important, and that is health. So those of us who stand on the fence of health being more of a priority, we then say that health is more important than wealth, because if you're physically fit, you will have a high sense of well-being. However, wealth provides the opportunity to have a healthier life, providing you and myself a chance to have the good things of life, like spend more on holidays, spend more on luxury items. So because we at GMAT Speaks, we believe that health is the foundation that you need to attain in order to have every other available resource. We believe that without optimal health, you will not have that capacity to create wealth and enjoy it. We believe so. We will, at this point in time of building this foundation that we are working on right now, in going through the 9 pills, we will be using the synthesis pills to focus much more of our efforts and attention on the health creation. That is the part of our lives that we want to focus on as building the foundation. Now, bearing in mind that we know that money can help us get more health. Wealth can help us get more wealth. We do not take away from that fact. Taking the position that health, or well, rather, the position that, if I put it this way, that wealth once lost can be gained back, and that can be achieved through a number of factors, such as hard work, smart work, a good fortune, or just some sheer luck, or an unexpected opportunity, or it could even be an inheritance. We do believe that once you've lost wealth, you can gain it back, and that could happen just in 1 second. Okay, it might take some time, but wealth as we want it will eventually come back. It will come back to us as long as we are reprogramming our minds, and we are working on a conscious state of our being, and also on the subconscious state of our beings. We believe that, whereas we believe that on the other hand, health once lost is extremely hard to gain back and will take a whole lot of time and care, leaving in its wake unintended consequences, just the same way as the lack of wealth leaves in its wake consequences. Okay, and these consequences are going to be felt as direct and indirect suffering on those who are close to the one who has the ill health. Okay, we understand as a tribe that a lot of people spend their entire lives gathering all the wealth, a lot of the times missing on precious moments in life, and later on in life having to spend most of, if not all, that wealth on themselves to sustain themselves due to their poor health choices. Okay, when they indeed had a choice to invest in their health. Now the downfall of misplacing, or better put, not balancing our act in the health and wealth stage, or the health and wealth platform, is that without a reprogrammed subconsciousness, we will also miss out on precious times and precious memories in that race of accumulating wealth. And this is done at the detriment of our health. Now, that is the downfall of misplacing our focus on both health and wealth. Now, if we strike a balance, then we should be on a safe platform. So what we've done is we've created the 9 sentences pills to help us strike that balance and to give us a chance to have homeostasis between health and wealth, create some kind of balance in our lives with this 9 sentences tool kit. Okay, we understand that you can buy more medicine and the best medical attention with money. However, we really do want to change that perception. We want to build a culture, a people who rather make lifestyle and subconsciousness changes in order to acquire the power, the intellectual wealth, to attain optimal quality life. Okay, and this life, what we are saying, this life will exclude the need to depend on the monopoly that big pharma and the medical services have currently, the monopoly that they have as we've been socialized to believe. Okay, and they've so socialized our thinking to make us believe that they are the solution to our health, or to the questions we have in terms to do with our health. Now, if that is a truth, if they are the solution, indeed the solution to our health, or to giving us optimal health, then today we will not be sitting with this pandemic called COVID-19. If in actual fact, Big Pharma, if in actual fact, WHO, if in actual fact, the American Heart Association, if in actual fact, the Food and Drug Association, these are the keepers of the castle. Okay, we refer to the medical profession. These are the people who have dominated the health landscape since the 1920s. If indeed they were playing the monopolized role that they have, if they are playing that role, and the role is to provide us with the best health service, if they have been playing their roles well, now the question is this: why are we sitting with a globe that has been locked down? Why are we sitting with a vaccine that needs to be produced to deal with this pandemic? Why? I'll tell you why. It's all scripted. Okay? This is just another tool in the hands of the big 4 industries to yet sponge us off with their soon-to-be released solutions and services that include, however, not restricted to us taking vaccines. Now that is Big Pharma's solution. Okay? It is not going to be restricted to us using data to run the world more effectively. And in that space, I say we're welcoming big telco. It is not restricted to us being told to eat more GMOs, more GMOs as food. in order to boost our immunities. And to that I say, welcome, big foodie. Okay, and also the seemingly less evidence, however, more pronounced use of products that have both cosmetic and therapeutic effects. That means having medical or drug-like effects, which are intended to have a beneficial effect on our skin health and beauty. To that I say, welcome, big cosmeceuticals. This is a golden age of opportunities for these 4 big industries, and we are bang in the center of this play, of this script, of this matrix. When we get our subconsciousness reprogrammed, we will see the movie script that is playing out right before us. We are a part of a present-day movie, and the script writers and directors want us to play as the main actors. And guess what? We are playing very well in that space. So looking at the golden age, looking at the golden era where there are going to be more products, I want to mention, as I begin to close on this particular podcast, today being the 7th of April 2020, and also with, like I mentioned previously, with the unraveling news of British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's ill health. This was meant to be my final podcast, okay? Bring the Empower series to a close. But it's taken a spin and it's taken a twist, as I've had to apply my mind to this unraveling occurrence, which has then stretched the podcast. When I say the occurrence, I'm referring to the news about British Prime Minister Boris Johnson being taken to ICU, and possibly, I suppose now he might be on, I hope not, he might be on a ventilator. So I'm going to have to pause this podcast here and continue with the rest of what I have to share as part of the concluding on this 8th pill. That's the Empower pill, and I'll do that on my next podcast. And what I'm going to title that podcast 008C-2 Empowered to Live. Okay, so it's predominantly strong on my mind right now on what the world is seeing in terms of Boris Johnson's ill health or health. Now, 50-50 is a rated chance for survival once you are in ICU, especially when you are on a ventilator. It's a 50-50 chance. We believe that with a reprogrammed mind, with a belief in optimal health, with an awareness that Boris Johnson or anyone else is built differently, we believe that with the application of a consciousness and the right treatment and also the right intervention, we believe it is possible to beat any chronic illness. Okay, so we say you need to start this process on time while you are in the state of pleasure, when the choices are ours to make, and rather go through the pain when the choice is yours to make or ours to make, rather than wait for the time of pain when the choices are no longer in our control, and then we are trying to get an end result of homeostasis and pleasure. Now that is a bit late. So we as part of the GMOS community, we believe and pray that British Prime Minister Boris Johnson will fall on the upper end of that 50% curve or survival curve, and we believe that he will experience the upper limit of the survival chance, and that he will be discharged from ICU within the next 2 weeks. It takes about that long to be in ICU, to be moved out of ICU, and also the subsequent 6 to 8 weeks post ICU, which will provide him with full recovery from COVID-19. We believe that he will go through this huge challenge. Our thoughts and prayers are with him, the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. Our thoughts and prayers are with his pregnant fiancée, Carrie Simmons. Our thoughts and prayers are with the UK and the globe at large. We believe when the mind is reprogrammed in the state of pleasure without having a chronic illness, or even if you have a chronic illness, you begin to reprogram the mind, then the process to enjoy the pleasure has been kicked in. That can be done at a point where it's a choice you can make. Okay, so I'm going to be trying to close this particular podcast, and it's going to be titled 0008C-1, I am empowered. It's the part A and the last of the 8th pill in this system. Okay, so this draws to a completion this particular podcast titled I am empowered. Now, there is still just one last podcast to complete this Empower pill, which is part of the 9-pill system. Okay, so I want to encourage you to please look out as GMAX and GMAX Speaks brings to a close the foundation of the 9-pill series with a conclusion on the part B on the 8th pill series. Now, the final podcast to bring this Empower pill to a close will be titled 008C-2, Empowered to Live. Please stay tuned and look out for that link. In the meantime, please visit my website www.gmashspeaks.com, or you can visit www.georgemashigo.com, spelled GeorgeMashigo.com. You can also check on my YouTube channel, George Mashigo, for other podcasts. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time. We very much appreciate it. It's a long journey. We appreciate the fact that you're making our time to listen to this point. It's a long journey. It's a 50-minute podcast. People don't have the patience or the time to listen to a 50-minute podcast. So GMAS Speaks, what are you doing? Well, what we are doing essentially is just laying the foundation for subsequent podcasts that we're going to make, and they're going to be much shorter and more brief. We are taking the pains to go through this foundation phase. The foundation is essentially much more important than the building itself, or I could say they're both important. But if you have a weak foundation, then of what purpose as the building? So bear with us. Thank you so much for taking your time out to listen to this podcast. God bless you. We are going to start the spark. God bless. Goodbye.